Welcome back, traders. We have Tim Collins and Bob Byrne here from Retro Wall Street. Guys, how you doing?
Doing wonderful.
Doing
That,
good.
so, Retro Wall Street, does that carry over into any other parts of your life? Like, are you guys retro dressers, or are you guys just kind of just?
Oh, just a bad dresser.
It's retro Wall Street, Joel, not hipster Wall Street.
Dear God.
We only drink from old fashions, you know.
Okay, well, we had a good discussion with you guys last time, and got your background and everything. So today we just want to talk more about your trading strategies and how you approach the markets. But a lot of with automated trading and everything, a lot of people trade systems and stuff. Could you just tell us the market closes at 4 o'clock? What you do for preparation for the next trading day?
My stuff pretty much revolves around market profile, and I do most of my homework off of that, and I'll do it for the various equity futures, as well as gold, crude, and a few major stocks. Um, kind of feels like it gives you an edge over the algorithms, gives you better levels to trade against the following day.
Okay.
That's before or after you hit happy hour.
During.
Yeah, actually,
During happy hour.
yeah. When the market closes up, actually, there's a couple of guys in the chat room that stay with me, and we'll trade around with the after hours every once in a while. We found some pretty good opportunities, especially around earnings season, which clearly is dying down. For trading the after hours action, but for me, it's generally running some scans on charts. That's about as automated as I get, but I'll run through looking for some preferred setups, generally breakouts on momentum, along with a few other names that we've been watching that might be setting up for bull or bear flags, and just getting a watch list set up for the next day. It's generally my approach, and then batting around some ideas with Bob, either in the chat room or via Skype if it gets too late at night.
When you guys are trading the after hours now, are you just trading the movers, or are you trading sympathy plays? And how are you approaching the after hours? Are you looking at different levels? Like, how are you guys approaching those stocks?
Almost exclusively the movers, and a lot of times I'll trade through interactive brokers, which will give me the after hours charting. So I'll just look at the last hour of the day along with the charts going on the 1 minute chart after hours. Now, if it's something that gaps significantly where the daily chart almost doesn't matter anymore, I won't give it as much weight. But for every stock that I'm looking at trading after hours for earnings, I've already done an earnings chart going into the report. So I've picked out levels or targets where I think the stock is going to go on good news or on bad news. For instance, if it's warning, or if they're guiding higher. And so I'll look to those levels for a point of reference as I'm trading the after hours. But I'm also looking for the patterns after hours, and that's purely price. You're not trying to bring in RSI and MACD if you can even find a system that's plotting those after hours. It is purely price driven. You can bring in some candlesticks there as well, but that's about it.
And the after hours trading, like I do a little bit of it myself as well, and I do find stocks that trade after hours trade kind of, and I've been in the markets and trading prop for 15 years, and I always find like the after hours trading is kind of how it used to be a little bit. You don't have a lot of participation maybe from some of the programs that are offline. They don't like the risk as much, so it's trading more on how I kind of used to trade with real supply and demand. Do you find that there too?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, I totally agree. You get the same thing. We've got a couple guys in the room that trade quite a bit of the Globex session in the futures for the same reason. Some of the best trading in the ES is right at the European Open, which is 3 a.m. Eastern.
Right.
Kind of makes it tough for those of us living in the mountains. That's pretty much 1 a.m. But
Or you just don't go to bed.
yeah, that gets tiring.
Was there anything you were active in last night?
Oh God, no! I'm doing almost no trading in ahead of Thanksgiving. We basically trading the first 90 minutes, 2 hours of the days right now. I do trade the day before Thanksgiving today and Friday, only because sometimes you get some kind of ridiculous moves. I mean, I don't want to sit these days out.
Yeah, and last night was a little too thin for me. I mean, whenever you have a Thanksgiving week, holiday week around Christmas, you did have Hewlett Packard, which was a pretty good mover last night, but that one is a little bit too thin for me. There's just enough other things going on in your life that every once in a while your after hours trading can take a little backseat.
Okay,
Yeah,
let's just
it's a
take
matter.
a.
Okay, I was going to say it's a matter of balancing that. I know I have the same issue here because I'm on the an Eastern time zone, and basically, if I want to trade the entire equities after hour session, it's till 8 o'clock at night. My wife will be probably when I miss supper and skip supper and stuff, not that impressed. When I've been trading since 6 or 7 in the morning and going till 8 at night. So it's a matter of
Especially if you lose.
yeah, that's not good either. And I mean, sometimes after hours, and that's the one thing, you can make a little bit more after hours. You can lose a lot more after hours too, because some stuff can just really blow right through you there. I don't know what the stock. What was the one that was trading there, Joel? And it blew through me by $3 or $4. Was it Facebook there, or which one was it? It was Facebook, wasn't it? That I had. Remember, I was complaining about it there off the last earnings report, and Facebook got up to like $58 or something after hours after that last report, and I thought it was ridiculous. And I started trying to short it, picking a top, being a hero, trying to short it like $55 or $56. Before I knew it's 2 and 3 points against me, I was like, man, that was not a good.
You should have been hanging out with us. We actually got that one right after hours.
Did you get it? Yeah, I just
although we covered way too quick.
Did you go long it right off the initial report, or?
No, actually, we got short very near the top. Actually, we were short in the 56s.
Yeah, I was too. I got shaken out was the problem. I started short at 55, and I think I added a 56, and I think it went up to didn't it get into the 58s, like 50?
Yeah, that was such a short tick, though. A lot of times that's where the charting after hours can come in handy, where that one immediately had a selling tail right after it hit that level. And yeah, it made us a little bit nervous. The fortunate thing was we were actually shorting on the way back down, so I didn't have to sit through that $2 higher on the upside. It might have shaken me out, but that was such a quick reversal, and that's a lot of things that I'll look for after hours. Is those candlestick patterns really become accentuated. You get that thinner volume, you don't have quite the same churn from the machines. So for me, it's a little more apparent after hours, but you're right. You've got to stay smaller and realize that, even on 100 shares, you could be down $300, $400, $500 in the blink of an eye on some of these stocks. So, if you start trading 1,000 shares, you've got to pay attention to the fact that the liquidity is not the same as well.
And you made a great point just saying we're starting to short it on the way down. And usually I try to play it that way too. I was being a hero on that trade. But that's just it. When the stock's going straight up, don't be a hero and try to stay in front of it. Wait for the turn and then try to short it on the way down. Is that how you approach it a little bit more often?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I want to play the reversals after they've reversed. I know I'm not going to top tick a stock. I know I'm not going to catch the bottom. I've tried to do that. It's been extremely painful. So we don't even try to do that. Everybody that I trade with, we've realized that you just don't get many top ticks or bottom catches in your life. So why bother to try? I don't want to waste it when I'm still under the this side of 50.
What are you talking about? I get the top tick a lot when I'm buying, and I get the bottom tick a lot when I'm selling. So we call that whenever Dennis does that. I told him at least he'll get in the newspaper. He'll get in the Wall Street Journal. Yeah, it's a journal trade. But let's just do a little quick analysis. I don't know if you're active in it today or not, but let's just take a look at Crocs today. Trading up, had a nice pop in the pre-market. Blackstone may do a possible investment in this stock. Dennis and I are kind of like eternal bears on this because we don't think anybody over 12 years old, besides Dennis's dad, wears the shoes.
But he wears
so
the generic one, so they don't get any money.
I was going to say, all three of my kids pound on the table to wear them, but I will tell you, none of them have gone over the age of 12 yet. So
yeah,
you might have something to that.
My kids have them too, but come on, they're rubber shoes. I've had a hard time with this. Tim and I traded this thing when was that, Tim? It was just a week or so ago. Looks like
Yeah.
November 13th. This
On that
thing
spike.
spiked up, and we traded it when it pulled back, and it just kept drifting lower, and we eventually got out of it. I've had
And took losses. We can admit it. Yeah, we take losses.
yeah,
as well.
I've had 14.10 to 14.
First time in
quarter.
radio history somebody admitted taking a loss.
I've had 14.10 to 14 quarter marked on this chart since then, and we're trading above it right now. If we hold above 14 quarter, I might look at it, but I'm still bitter from the fact that it didn't fall through the last time.
I think the one thing chasing here today or looking at it, I believe you got a well-defined loss. That 1387 area, you got to close below that 1387 area. There's just no reason to be in it long. The same thing if it doesn't go over, doesn't close over this 14 level, you've got no reason to stay in long. The thing is, with this chatter, I think it's really hard to stay short, and also it's a pretty ugly pattern, but you do have somewhat of an inverse head and shoulders there. If you take a look from October 1st through today, you got your left shoulder the first 2 weeks there in October. You've got your inverse head down there around $12 that first week and a half in November, and now we just traced out the right shoulder. It's not, it's not the prettiest girl at the prom there, but there might be a dance to be had on the close over 14 here. And that upside target is, $16 a share, and you've got a gap fill that plays up to 17. So you got a couple of things. You got a couple of things on the side of the bulls here to consider. Maybe a call spread, something with a limited risk on the name.
You were describing a head and shoulders there formation. Yeti out of the chat room. Could you reiterate where you saw the head in that pattern?
Yeah. Oh, this is Tim. Look at that first week and a half in November, right after we had the plunge there, the last day of October. That $12 level, between 12 and 12 and a quarter,
okay.
gives you your 5-day hedge formation. It's got decent symmetry there. It looks like a very playable pattern to me.
A lot of air above that 14.5 area. We're up there multiple times. You got that huge gap. So, if we could ever get and clear that area, there's definitely some air above there. But I just don't know if we got the gas to get through it there today.
Okay, so we discussed your after-hour strategies. I know your different time zones there. So just describe. Are you guys up? Are you watching that 4 a.m. open at all in the equities? That's you're on Mountain Time, so that's really a crazy time for you. But when does your trading day start, and when do you start pulling the trigger?
Kind of depends on the if we have any news. I get up early. I'm normally up 4 a.m. give or take Mountain Time, so that's 6 a.m. Eastern, but fairly early for me. On employment days, I'm always up early. Those are good days. I don't trade the European Open just because of the time. If I lived on the East Coast, I probably would.
Yeah, for me, I'm more of a night owl, so I'm usually up until 12 o'clock, sketching out charts or looking at strategies. And then, it's kind of funny, but during the summer, I will sleep in more because the kids are asleep. And during the school year, since they're up early, I'm up earlier. But I'm usually looking over the market, the news, and everything starting around 6 or 6:15 in the morning. If there's a trade to be had, I'll log in and try to take it. When I do have more active positions, like earnings trades, then I'm generally at the computer earlier. I'm not ashamed to admit this morning I rolled out of bed about 7 o'clock and just walked over to the computer. It's a holiday week. You're not going to find me clanking away too early today. I think, as a matter of fact, we're probably the only guys just talking to each other. Might be a good day to trade, actually.
Take the other side of each other's trade. So okay, moving on. Okay, so then you've gotten through the after hours, the pre-market, and then you mentioned you like to be active in the first 90 minutes. I know Dennis has some strategies for the open. Are you sending out a lot of orders on the open, trying to catch some discrepancies, or are you real choosy, just picking certain levels and some scalps off the opening prints?
Since I'm normally on the indices, it kind of depends on how we're trading. If you have an active pre-market, then I kind of treat the day as though it began 30 to 60 minutes before the 9:30 open. But if it's a quiet pre-market like it is today, I'll usually let it settle for 5, 8, 10 minutes before I do anything. But I always have my levels that I'm looking to trade against ahead of the open. I try to know exactly where I'm interested in trading before the open, so I don't need to worry about too much.
Yeah,
Okay.
I tend to be very choosy. One to three stocks, and just focused upon those, and not trying to catch any discrepancy.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
More
and
swing trading type strategies then, like you're looking at a setup. Like what's your time frame when you're entering a trade? Are you looking going in for 15, 20 cents? Or are you looking, going in for the whole day? What
I
is
think
the time frame?
it depends, actually.
Okay.
On the indices, my ideal scenario is if I can get a trade on and sit it for 30 minutes to a couple hours, that's wonderful. But if things are moving quickly and it's kind of a balanced two-way market,
Yeah.
it's going to be a lot of scalping.
Yeah.
So it just depends.
Each trade, though, each setup is a little bit different. If you're looking at an intraday chart, then absolutely it's a scalp for me where I'm looking at scaling. So if I'm, for instance, on Facebook, which I'll trade a lot, I'll take a position and I'll scale it in thirds, where I'll sell 1/3. I'll try to sell 1/3 quickly, 10 or 15, 10, 15, maybe 20 cents. And then I'll look at selling another third based on the target, which is usually 2 times my first sale. And then the last third is what we call a runner. And I want to let that one go as long as possible, where I'll switch to 5-minute bars and look for, a close below the low of 2 5-minute bars earlier, something along those lines. But for a swing trade, the sizing is different. For a swing trade, it's usually 1/3 the size of a scalp, if not less. And I'm looking at, an overnight trade to 2 or 3 weeks. And it really depends on the price pattern, if stops are triggered. Clearly each trade you enter has a stop, whether you enter it into the system or it's mental and you actually enforce it. If you don't enforce even a mental stop, it was never a stop. It was just just something that made you feel better about entering the trade, and in the end is going to bite you in the tail. So, that's my approach. It's actually very similar to Bob. We both use a scaling method of exiting with profit. As far as exiting with the loss, it's one and done. There's no scaling on your losers. You are just out.
Yeah,
you're wrong.
if you're wrong, you're wrong.
Not that we have any losers, right, Bosco?
So are you scaling into your trades too on the entries, or you just picking your lot? Nope. You're all in on your entry, and then you're all in on your stop, and then you try and partial out of your winning trades. Then correct?
I'll take the other side of that and say that there are occasions where I will, if I'm looking for a slightly longer term, even if it's only for the day. If I'm looking for a longer trade and I think it's going higher, but I'm not sure where the turn's going to come, I might, bid a couple times to get into it. But that's very, very rare. Normally, it's enter all at once, and if I'm wrong, get out all at once. If I'm right, I tend to scale it.
Okay, we got a question coming out of the chat room here. Apple, which has just been slumping, it's trading in a trading range. I think I counted it up yesterday. 17, 18 days trading between 514 and 529. We broke out yesterday, getting some follow through here in the pre-market. Is Apple something on your radar? You think we'll get? Dennis likes to talk about the 2-day move. What are you looking for in Apple today?
I will say Apple showed up on my momentum scanners yesterday. I actually have it right at resistance here. If you look back at that October 29th high, we get a close below that October 29th high, the intraday high. That was a pretty nasty reversal, but right there around 536. We get a close above 536, and I would look right now for about an additional $25 upside. I would look towards 560. And I actually think then it could see 560 before the end of the year, just based on a close, the technical breakout there. You got Bollinger Bands expanding right now. You've got a MACD bullish crossover. You've got a momentum indicator like the CCI into the high 200s, which we haven't seen for a while. I'm looking at, there's 4 different indicators when you're looking at technicals in my view. You've got measuring volatility, you've got measuring momentum, you've got moving averages, and you've got price. Not Stephen Price, who's in the chat room here with us this morning, but price overall. Oh, that's Stephen Place, sorry. But over 536 here, and you would trigger all four technical bullish breakouts. All four of those indicators would trigger. So for me, over 536, I'm absolutely gonna, look at some type of late December, January type of call spread with a 560 type of target here.
I just pulled that Apple up on a profile, and if you're day trading it, the two levels I'd be going off of are 533 and 527. So it's gapped up right now, near 537. If it fades off the open, I would think it would get, rejected immediately from 533 bullishly. And if it trades through that, I tend to think you want to be careful going long it, but as long as it doesn't close under 527, probably just chops around for a couple days and moves back higher. If it closed under 527, I happen to think it's dead and it's going to trade right back down to 515.
We got two different possible scenarios here. That's why we have a market.
Yes. I would say overall, though, from our conversations, I don't want to speak for Bob, but I've known Bob a long time right here. I don't think we'd be shorting this. Yes, it might fade back into that range, and that's fine.
Right.
But I think the only trade I would look at here is a long side trade. Also, when you guys were talking about that trading range, it's really an ascending triangle there. So we get a breakout today, and if you take that back to that little gap there on October 21st, and connect the bottoms from October 21st through that first week in November through about November 20th of last week, you've got a really nice base there that started around 510 that's gone up to 512.50. You could call that a channel, you could call that a very slight ascending triangle, but either way, a close above 533, 534 puts price on top of that channel. You now have created support that was resistance. So for me, the risk reward absolutely favors a bull position, not a bear.
One more thing on that Apple. From October 21st until, just the 22nd or so of November, the thing did a ton of volume between, roughly 516 and 527. The most actively traded price in here is about 520 on here. And yesterday we pushed out of that balance and higher. So the whole idea being there's hardly any volume has traded at 533. So if we trade back down to that and sellers still view that level as unfair, right? They're not willing to sell, then you're looking higher. If we trade beneath that, I would give it a little bit of wiggle room down toward the upper part of that balance, which is 527. And it's if it re-enters that 527 and breaks there, my assumption is there's no one's buying above there, and so we're back inside balance. It's not bullish or bearish. It just means you trade between that 527 and down toward the 515. Again. So
we had nice volume yesterday too. Yesterday should have been a lower volume day, and look at the spike on the volume. You haven't seen that type of volume since you go back to that reversal. What was that on the October 29th? The week of the 28th.
Earnings. Yep. I'm looking at 539 and a quarter. That was the earnings day high. Is really your next major resistance level. I know it got a little bit giddy in the pre-market or the after hours. It spiked over 540, but to me, I'm looking at the 539 and a quarter level, and then also I just longer term I like to do retracements, and the 50% retracement of this monster move comes right in at the 545 area here. So I think we're at least going to get some follow through up to that area. Another question coming out of the chat room, as far as when you're day trading the E-mini S&P 500s, what kind of risk reward ratios do you use?
For me, it's largely dependent on the setup. I'll tell you that, if you're in the E-mini, 2 handles. If you're in the SPY, 20 cents. Basically 10 cents in the SPY for every handle in the E-mini. Generally, I'm not going to enter something if I've got to let it go more than a couple handles against me. But in that, I'm not going to normally have a hard stop, right? I want to see is there any sort of acceptance of volume? Do you just spike down and spike back up? There is a bit of tape reading in there. A lot of it's with your homework. Like take today, for instance. Last 2 days and today, we're looking back towards 1798 quarter. As long as we're holding above that, I'm looking long. Now, if we hit 98 quarter and we just spike to 97, I wouldn't rule that out as still a place to buy. Okay, that 97 is actually the top of a previous bounce. Now, if we break that, forget it. I think we're going back down to 92. But if we spike right down to 98, I'm looking for a long there. I don't want to sell short in the hole. On the upside, I'm looking 1807.75. So the two areas right off the bat today that I'm interested in trading are that 98 quarter and 1807.75. We've been, chopping around balanced for the last few days. So I'm interested in selling up toward the resistance and buying down below. As far as more of a breakout strategy, if we break the 1807.75 and start doing some volume, maybe we trade up to 1810, I'm going to probably look to buy a pullback. And on the flip side is if we break that 98 quarter, I would expect us to trade down toward 95 quickly, and I would then look to sell back up into the 97 to 98 area.
Okay, couple strategies for you. I know Dennis is going to hop off here to get prepared for the Open. Dennis, you got a final question for Tim and Bob? I got a few more for them, but
I just have one final question, and then I got to hop off to go trade my Open. But I've been accumulating a position in Facebook while we've been on the show here, and I just was making an argument this morning that I think this stock had a big reversal day yesterday. I think you might have caught a few people. Obviously anybody that was short-term long this thing may have got shaken out 2 days ago when we took out that key support. We had the straight-out move yesterday where I think you might have actually caught a few people short this thing. What are your guys' thoughts short-term on Facebook?
Well, Facebook was one we actually traded yesterday, and we bought off of that reversal. I sold a little too quickly. My concern here is a lot of times I'll plot those 8 and 13-day moving averages on there. Until I see the stock get above both the 8 and 13-day moving average, it's just a scalp for me. Everybody and their brother has been talking about the big head and shoulders pattern on this thing, and you can look at it from a short-term, few-day time frame where you go back to just around November 11th through yesterday, or you can look all the way back to include October 21st as that head. I think unless we see 2 days of close above those two moving averages, for me, yesterday was nice, but we've had a couple other reversal attempts since that October 21st high, and they've gotten rejected several times within 2 to 3 days. So I'm a little hesitant to call the one-day reversal right now. Again, remember we talked about trying to pick bottoms. This thing's been making lower lows since that October 21st high. So I will let you make that call, and I'm happy to buy some of those shares from you, probably a little bit higher here. But if that increases my probability for success and keeps me away from seeing 42.5, which I think is possible, or even 38, I'll be willing to buy it at 47.5.
This is a scalp for me too, though. I would never let this thing get by. And I'll just tell you obviously my reasons I gave on the pre-market show earlier today that we had a whole V bottom thing. I think you do have a few people caught short. I'm looking at basically like a 45.50 out on this thing. Thing starts getting down, and that's why I've got a trade on. It's a short-term trade, so I'm not looking $38, $40. I'm not looking to ride this thing to $50. I'm looking that I think you could get a little bit of follow through from yesterday's move. So just started accumulating
on a
it from
scalp,
there.
it's not bad. I would say, if you get 46.50, I would take it and be happy. If it gets to 46.50 and reverses, I might actually look short in there. But yeah, you've got a nice little breakout if we get over 46, where I think you could see a good quick pop, 50 cents, maybe $1, but probably 50 to 75 cents today. I'd be interested in that. I thought you were talking accumulate. When somebody says accumulate, I'm thinking
accumulated trade. You got to. I'm the master scalper. Like and I'm trying to move away from this scalping. Every time I try to cut my finger a little bit and squeeze some of that scalping blood out of me, because I was a market maker basically for all these years. So I've got that scalper mentality. So a long-term trade for me is usually about 20 minutes. But I've been trying, to lengthen my time horizon a little bit longer. So yeah, accumulated position for me is probably quite a bit different than accumulated position for you.
Hey, Dennis, watch that 47 and 49. If you go back to October October 18 or so.
Mhm.
The two levels that have been most accepted, the two most actively traded price levels are 47 and 49. I actually think today, as long as we don't, start doing a lot of trading under 45.50, I think this thing can move higher. If it closes a session under 45, I think it's dead.
Yeah. I agree. I think it's got to hold on to these gains that it made yesterday, and I think if it starts getting out, like 45.50 is the number I have in the back of my mind. But obviously, we'll see what materializes here. But I'll probably be long gone. A little bit different time frame than maybe you guys. But thanks, guys. I've got to hop off and just go trade my open, so I'll leave it you guys with Joel. So
Well, good luck
Okay.
with the open, Dennis.
Thanks, Dennis.
Okay, we're going to move on to Joe in a second with some headlines, but just to close out, we talked a lot about stocks, a lot of strategies and things like that. Do you have, we're coming into the end of the year, different things happen. You got some other dogs and maybe barking here. We've been talking about Alcoa, got an upgrade from Goldman Sachs, and J.C. Penney's barking a little bit. Is there anything that you would like our traders and investors to keep an eye on here, perhaps for some year-end buying and a little bit of pop going into next year?
I'll throw my hat in the ring for gold. I did some work on the GC contract, the gold futures, in our video for the Retro Wall Street folks this morning. You got an obvious trend line in this thing from October 30th straight down. It's hitting at 1250. Get through 1250 and it kind of improves a bit. If you can get a couple closes over 1270, I think we can get a decent short squeeze in both the gold futures and the miners. On the futures, back up toward 1350, 1370 area. So that's what I'm looking at.
Okay.
And I mean, I know Hewlett Packard's not exciting. I'm generally not into Hewlett Packard, and their guidance was only so-so. It's had a huge run this year. But on a big pullback or any size pullback, I would actually look at it for one thing. They said the magic words. They said 3D printing.
Okay.
As much, we were joking around. There was a company yesterday called Media Bistro, MBIS was the ticker. The company just announced that it was going into a strategic relationship with a .com, company that had the name 3D printing in it. The stock took off. It was up. At one point, got to nearly 5.5. We saw it up 150% yesterday, and it turns out it was 3D printing trade shows. Not even that they were going into 3D printing or anything along those lines, and you start digging around about the company and you see that it owes its CEO $8.5 million and it constantly gives him warrants to renegotiate the terms longer. And you're looking at this and going, people don't care. They hear the name, they hear 3D, and they say, I've got to be involved. This is the next hot, greatest thing. Well, Hewlett Packard talked about that. So people, I think, are going to push guidance away, and there's going to be continued announcements through next year on these 3D printing updates. And every time you see one of those announcements, it's going to make a tradable event. It's going to make a pop. That being said, they did mention that it's going to be organically, which may weigh on some of the existing 3D companies, where I've got to think that some people have something like 3D Systems as a potential buyout name on other people's radar, Stratasys. But Hewlett Packard's talking about growing organically, which puts those companies, or at least some of the smaller ones, at risk here, which means, you've got to be aware of that. Every time Hewlett Packard makes some type of announcement that is one step forward, or somebody, Wall Street interprets it as a success to growing in the 3D printing industry, that's going to weigh on them. And then you got to, go back around and look at Lexmark and say, hey, is Lexmark going to toss their hat in the ring here? And I have not seen anything that they are. And if you look at that stock, it looks like it's ready to break down and reverse lower. So I think there could be actually a lot more ramifications coming out of Hewlett Packard entering the 3D business than what we're seeing in the market right now. It's not a name I love, but I cannot ignore it with that announcement that is going to push this stock, I believe, back into the 30s next year, just on the premise. So anything above 27.5, I would not want to be short on Hewlett Packard.
That's an interesting call there. Well, thank you. We've had Tim Collins and Bob Byrne on from Retro Wall Street, giving us a very lively interview. Guys, thanks a lot. We'll let you get ready for the Open. Have a good Turkey Day. Don't eat too much. Don't get too stuffed like the turkey. And we'll like to check in with you sometime after. Well, we'll check in with you before the new year. Perhaps get your thoughts on some trading.